Support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum. Located in Jennings City Hall, the museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is a historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. Additional support provided by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and viewers like you.
The whole point is to develop projects here in Louisiana and own the projects here in Louisiana. And again, the state is going all out.
There's a new breeze blowing in Hollywood South. Is it here to stay?
I would like to leave this place a better place than I had a part in calling it to be.
700,000 acres and the work to conserve it.
I cried twice when they finally broke me.
What happened after the capture of a Vietnam POW and decorated war hero?
Hi everyone, I'm Andre Morrow. In a moment, more on that Vietnam war hero who somehow survived, the major efforts to conserve land in Caldwell Parish, and a comeback for Hollywood South. But first on the state we're in, two more LSU fraternities suspended over reported policy violations, Pi Kappa Phi and Alpha Gamma Rho. This follows the alleged hazing death of freshman Max Groover, who died of alcohol poisoning while pledging Phi Delta Theta back in September. And now to the week's other headlines.
A new bipartisan advocacy group dedicated to fighting gerrymandering in Louisiana. They rallied support this week looking to spread their message. They plan a summit in January ahead of next year's legislative session.
The borders of a district are as close as possible to the center of the district, and so that would more make it possible for a district to represent the community as opposed to cutting communities in half and go riding across the state. Basically.
Compactness is the sense of a district looks like a normal thing that you would draw, not some crazy Jackson Pollock painting looking strange thing.
Governor John Bel Edwards became the first Louisiana governor to issue an open investment policy statement, making the historic announcement at Shell Chemicals' Geismar manufacturing facility. International investment leaders hail the declaration as setting our state apart and reaffirming our reputation as being open for business with high-quality job opportunities. No protection for LGBT workers in state government from discrimination, harassment, and firing. The ruling a week ago from the State First Circuit Court of Appeal knocks down the hopes of the governor. Attorney General Jeff Landry's reaction: we do not live under a king in Louisiana. Governor Edwards notes President Donald Trump has these protections in place, but a panel of 3 judges ruled them unconstitutional because the case goes beyond a mere policy statement to fulfill law. There's a new website that highlights the Louisiana Governor's Mansion. First Lady Donna Edwards introduced it this week, saying living in the governor's mansion is a delight, and the governor and I want to share its history and beauty with other Louisianians and visitors. The First Lady calls the mansion the people's home. Personal tours are encouraged with appointments, and until then, virtual tours are always online at governorsmansion.org. The governor announcing the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority, CPRA, is getting an additional $9.6 million in grant funds from the U.S. Department of Treasury. It's for the engineering and design phase of the Calcasieu Ship Channel Salinity Control Measures Project. The project has now received more than $25 million in Restore Act money.
1918's Tarzan of the Apes, a silent film, the first major film shot on location in Louisiana. It was in Morgan City. Ever since, we've been a paradise for filmmakers, and we became a place to make big money when tax credits were uncapped 15 years ago. In 2015, production, though, screeched to a halt when then Governor Jindal imposed an awkward cap on credits. Fast forward to the present. An adjustment by the legislature this past summer has brought new life and perhaps longevity to the industry here. I'm looking at a new article from Variety, which is the longtime Hollywood standard movie publication, and it's talking about Louisiana fights back with revived and generous production incentives. Of course, we're several months past now the new legislation that took place to help revive Louisiana's movie industry, which was on the top of the world for some years and then sunk down much lower than that. With me right now is Patrick Mulhern, former executive director of Celtic Studios, now a production consultant. So where do we stand, and how valid is this headline from Variety?
Well, it is. It's a different kind of fight in some senses. Obviously, there is a law change July 1st. That means there's new percentages, there's new caps, but there's really new opportunities for people who want to shoot in Louisiana, and especially for people who are interested in investing in films in Louisiana.
Okay, so what is investing? Speak on that a little bit.
Well, sure. I mean, for the past decade or more, we've become experts at facilitating production. We are some of the best in the world. I mean, we've had so many Academy Award nominees that have shot here, but it's not necessarily our intellectual property. It's Hollywood coming here.
And then leaving.
And yeah, well, they certainly spend a lot of money when they're here and employ a lot of people, but ultimately, we're not getting the residual checks. Now, some of our local talent who's working on these films, they're getting mailbox money, as we call it, years from now. But the people who actually own a stake in the production often are not in Louisiana. So the new law seeks to change that, and that's what's really important.
Well, that's what would be long-term stability and really drive an industry, is if the stakes were here.
Well, that's exactly right, and there are now new incentives for people to actually write the product here in Louisiana and keep the intellectual property here. I mean, there is a Louisiana screenwriters credit. Basically, you can stack credits now in Louisiana to the point you get almost a 40% tax credit. Again, for budgets under $5 million. But again, the whole point is to develop projects here in Louisiana and own the projects here in Louisiana. And again, the state is going all out. We're not just going to incentivize that stage of it, physical production. We're going to incentivize development, which is a big part of it, and that's year-round, and then distribution. So there are new wrinkles to the Louisiana law.
Let me take a look at and ask you about some of the things this article is talking about. It says 40% credit for resident, above the line and below the line workers. What does that mean exactly?
When you're looking at the percentage for people shooting in Louisiana, there's a 25 kind of across the board. When you can stack it with an additional 15% for all the Louisiana residents on the payroll. So just that payroll portion of what, let's say if you and I were working on a film and we're Louisiana residents, they get an additional 15 for that. So it's basically a 40% credit on the payroll for Louisiana people working on the film.
And then 25% for non-resident?
25% for non-residents. And there's really a new wrinkle. There's an additional 5% if you will shoot and base outside of New Orleans, because obviously New Orleans has been getting over 90% of all the business in Louisiana. There's a real effort on the state's part to try to spread that around and try to, again, spread out the economic impact.
Let's look at certain parts of the state. Shreveport, for a while, they built a huge industry, and then it kind of got quiet, but they've done a lot of independent and smaller things lately, and their film festival, their prize film festival, is terrific. Talk about Shreveport, for example. I'd like to look at maybe Shreveport, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans as the three top cities where at least the film industry has built a lot of infrastructure.
Well, again, there's this kind of this unwritten rule of the work follows the crew and the crew follows the work. And so we've had some problems because the work has not been steady because of problems with the incentives. And so what we need is kind of steady work coming back, and I think that you're starting to see that outside of New Orleans.
So Shreveport's getting some of that?
Shreveport is getting some of that, and again, this Louisiana Film Prize is actually about growing content filmmakers here in Louisiana. So, I mean, again, these are...
Yeah, and the films have to be shot there in northwest Louisiana.
That's right, in order to qualify for
for
that prize, yeah. So again, that's smaller scale, but again, everybody's got to start somewhere, and that's what that is intended to do, is to really get people who are interested in filmmaking just doing it, because that's how you learn. You learn on the job.
The Celtic Studios, which was just bustling at one point and then became a ghost town, what is it like now?
Well, I think the business model for Celtic has to change a little bit in the sense that those giant $150 million, $200 million films are not going to be coming back this way. I mean, a lot of them are going overseas, a lot of them are going to Georgia, but that's okay. Louisiana's on a budget now, and we can't necessarily afford giant productions like that. What we can't afford is scripted television series, and I think that that's probably Celtic's future more than anything. You will see some good-sized films. I know one in particular that's circling Celtic right now. If you were to look at it on paper, there's probably 8 to 10 feature films that are either shooting, prepping, or actively scouting Louisiana right now. There's at least 4 scripted television series, but could be as high as 6 as we get into 2018. So this is a good sign of a turnaround in a healthy industry.
Compared to where we were, from the height to the fall to now, there's a bigger smile on your face.
There's a much bigger
than
smile
there was before.
That's safe to say. Safe to say.
All right, Patrick, thanks so much.
Always a pleasure,
great
Andre.
to talk to you about this.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You know, when land is not worth farming, returning it back to nature. We celebrate the 25th anniversary of a program credited with protecting 700,000 acres in the Arklamis and helping restore the habitat of the once endangered Louisiana black bear. LPB's Kelly Spires is here with more on this. Kelly?
That's right. I visited with landowners near the Beff Wildlife Management Area in North Louisiana. We walked through forests that 15 years ago were just open fields. Take a look.
The area we're looking at here, if you think back to when it was enrolled in the program, it was probably cropland.
Kevin Norton is the state conservationist. He's with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. He says if unusable farmland was returned to nature without the program, plants that don't make for suitable habitat would take over.
What you're seeing here is a 15-year-old planting, and these trees are moving forward. And we're not having to deal with a lot of the trash species, the undesirables, and we're trying to get this thing to a mature forest as quickly as possible.
Landowners and the federal government team up to reforest unproductive farmland. The Wetlands Reserve Easement Partnership, formerly called the Wetlands Reserve Program, or WRP, does offer a financial incentive, though landowners often have to put up their own resources for restoration projects like tree plantings. Norton is walking the Wiggers Farm Partnership, a family farm outside of Winsboro with land in this and similar programs. Bonner Wiggers is of the 4th of 7 generations to work the land.
I would like to leave this place a better place than I had a part in causing it to be.
When Wiggers was growing up, the land was used as cattle pasture. In the 1960s, soybean exploded in popularity, and many farms in the area cleared land to grow it, including the Wiggers.
When the bean seemed like that was the answer to the farm problem, we did like a lot of other places did, we cleared it up. As time went on, as we farmed it, we found out that that was not profitable. This is marginal land at its best.
Wiggers and his family have tried every way they could think of to make the land bend to their will, get water where it needed to be, and keep it from where it would cause destruction. But they couldn't get the sodium-rich soil to soak up water, and they couldn't stop the floods.
A good way to deal with it is try not to get stressed, because we know that it's going to happen again. Because there's nothing ever been done as far as drainage has worsened the condition.
The mission of Norton's agency is rooted in the 1930s Dust Bowl. Farmers had exhausted soil across the Great Plains, so the national government founded the agency to help farmers grow food more sustainably. In modern-day Louisiana, there's no Dust Bowl, but Norton says there's still a need for the program. Look at the floods of 2016.
We've seen rampant erosion right here. Mr. Wiggers was telling us the story of the flood of last year, and how that water came across this landscape, and you could, other than the watermarks on the trees, you don't see any damage. Well, if this had been in cropland and not producing very well, we would have seen big washes and things like that.
And Louisiana as a whole sees the benefit. A year ago, the Louisiana black bear was removed from the endangered list.
The large part of the reason that the black bear was listed was the development of this area, northeast Louisiana, for soybean production. Then we created this situation where the populations got isolated. They couldn't get to each other. So can we come back in and put this back into to permanent vegetation, bottomland hardwood trees, your oaks and willows and mulberry and those kinds of species.
And bear isn't the only animal that the program has helped provide a home for. In the early 90s, Ronnie Graham and his business partners bought up a used-up, empty patch of land.
Most of it was a cattle farm. Actually, the land behind us that we're looking at to the southwest was a rice farm. This land that we're standing on here, I think, was part of that rice farm.
They bought the land to use for hunting. He says there wasn't much else to do with it.
It's wet in the winter and it's dry in the summer. We always say if it's too muddy to do anything on, 3 days later it's too hard.
Graham says when they bought the 3,800 acres, there were 12 deer. With the help of the Wetland Reserve Program, their herd is so large they warrant 50 tags annually. They get duck too.
Over the years, as research had proven, the duck population, it was all about their nesting grounds in Canada, and they come to find out it was just as important to have wintering grounds as it does nesting grounds.
It was open plain, and now it's 20-year-old woods that require thinning. All over northeast Louisiana, about 300,000 acres that were once barren flat land are now forest.
We've got it back to where I can see squirrels here now, and I can see deer. I walked up maybe 15 steps from a bear face to face one morning about 2 months ago, which is quite different.
Wigger says the place is different than when he grew up, but he's proud it'll be there for generations to come.
This inheritance and being a family farm and all of our children and grandchildren connected to it, it just means a whole lot to me.
If you're interested in land use and hunting and fishing, you want to tune in to this month's Louisiana Public Square, Sportsman's Paradise or Problem. It airs Wednesday, November 22nd at 7 p.m.
The Shreveport-Bossier area is hoping by this time next year on Veterans Day, a monument honoring all women who have served in all U.S. forces can be unveiled.
From an idea to a printout to a mini mock-up, the women veterans of the Arklatex are moving closer to seeing their vision come to life.
Hopefully next year, this time on Veterans Day, we can unveil that monument which honors all women in all military services.
The Air Force Sergeants Association presented this check for $5,000 to help in their efforts.
We're very appreciative for that donation and would encourage the community to join with AFSA and make a donation to the women veterans of the Arklatex and the Monument Fund.
This latest gift brings their donation total to 1/3 of the money needed to complete the project.
Keep this one over for just a little bit over here so I don't get in the way of the fast movers. Now rush it out.
Colonel Murphy Neil Jones, he goes by Neil, and turns 80 in January, served 3 tours in Vietnam, and it was during a 1966 air raid over Hanoi that he was shot down and captured. That he survived is remarkable. He spent 6 years and 7 months as a prisoner of war before returning to the U.S. and to his family in February of 1973.
Colonel Jones is a Baton Rouge native who earned a scholarship to play football at Tulane. A year ago, the university named its Wall of All-Americans in his honor, the Murphy Neil Jones All-American Wall.
God bless America. God bless you.
You are looking at ceremonies. With all he has experienced in life, you can imagine his ability to inspire. In 2016, he was invited to speak to the Green Wave football team and received a standing ovation. He was also named honorary team captain. Incredibly, Colonel Jones has film of his capture. As you'll see, it was used by the North Vietnamese as part of a PR campaign.
Flew combat in Southeast Asia the first time in 1964. Went back again in 1965. And then went back again in '66 for my 3rd time there, and this time I got shot down on June 29th, 1966, and was a prisoner until February the 12th, 1973. It was the biggest mission of the war I happened to be on. There were 24 F-105s involved in the bombing. There were some F-4s that were flying top cover for us. Our targets that day, there were 2 targets. The petroleum oil lubrication storage area at Hanoi and the petroleum oil lubrication storage at Haiphong Harbor. The Navy hit it, the Air Force hit the one in Hanoi. Prior to this day, we could not fly within a 30-mile radius of Hanoi. So this was personally approved by Lyndon Johnson. It was the first time we bombed Hanoi. We were all flying the same route. There were 6 flights of 4. I happened to be in the 6th flight, flying the number 2 position that day. From 50 miles in, there was nothing but anti-aircraft fire. We did completely destroy the gasoline storage area, but I was shot down and captured right on the outskirts of Hanoi. And I got hit almost in the cockpit with an 85 millimeter anti-aircraft round. It blew out the whole bottom of the airplane. I could look down underneath my feet. There was nothing but a hole there. Airplane was on fire. The fire was white. It was like white snow, and it was really hot. I didn't get burned. I was doing 620 miles an hour. I ejected at 620 miles an hour in a 90-degree left bank through a canopy because the canopy had been damaged. It wouldn't come off. Parachute opened, but I never swung. I was still decelerating at a 45-degree angle. When I hit the ground, it bounced 10 or 15 feet in the air. I was already wounded in both legs with shrapnel. Staggered up to my feet. I really didn't know I was as badly injured as I was, but I would end up having a dislocated left shoulder, a completely broken left arm just below the shoulder. I had 6 fractured vertebrae, and both of my knees were torn up. I released the parachute with my right hand, pulled my pistol. There were about 30 North Vietnamese soldiers running toward me, and they were 100 to 75 yards from me. And when they came up, first guy, I cocked the pistol and aimed at him. And when I did that, they all aimed their AK-47s toward me, and I decided I wasn't John Wayne. Uncocked it, and I stuck the butt of the pistol out to him, and he grabbed the pistol. I raised my right hand. Couldn't raise the left one. One of the soldiers came running up, grabbed the broken arm, and put it in a hammerlock. And when he did that, I just reacted. I was a pretty good-sized fellow, had played football in college. I hit this guy, and I really think I killed him. He went down. They got really excited, and I thought they were going to shoot. And I'm swinging the arm, pointing to it, and they didn't shoot. They stripped me of my flight suit, my G-suit, my survival vest, my boots, put a rope around my neck. Soldier walked up behind me, put a rifle to the back of my head, and then pulled the trigger on the empty chamber. The craziest thought went through my head. I said, damn, that's a slow bullet. Huh, that was a fake. They're not gonna shoot me. And about 6 or 7 guys, like a sack of potatoes, swinging it, they swung me, threw me up in the back of the truck with a bamboo pole tied about 3 feet back from the cab. And I was stand up holding on to that pole where it was crossways in the truck. And we took about an hour's ride through the city, showing me off to the people, and ended up at a place called the International House where they were having this huge press conference. They took me in, and I wanted to be as military as I could. And I walked in hurting very badly, and I stood up at attention and I saluted. Very proud of that because that film was seen all over the world, and it was used in the Philippines at Clark Air Base to train the guys who were getting ready to go over, and they would heard later from guys that had gone through it. They said, "See, this is how you should conduct yourself." Well, yeah, that was good, but I got the devil beat out of me for doing that. I cried twice when I was in prison. The first time was on the 9th day when they finally broke me and I signed a confession form. 1, I condemned the United States government for its aggressive war against the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. 2, I've encroached upon the airspace of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. 3, I am a war criminal. And 4, I have received humane and lenient treatment from the Vietnamese people and government. Well, obviously it's false. I didn't believe that. But they had broken me. I cried that night because I had failed.
After 21 years, Colonel Jones retired from the Air Force and eventually returned to Tulane as Director of Development for Athletics. he continues to share a strong bond with other POWs. You can see this and other Vietnam stories online right now in our LDMA, that's our Louisiana Digital Media Archives. And on November 28th at 7 p.m. on LPB, you're invited to watch the Vietnam War Louisiana Stories. That's our show for this week. Remember, you can watch LPB on demand on your phone or tablet with our LPB Anywhere app. The download is free from your app store. You can catch LPB news and public affairs shows as well as other Louisiana programs that you've come to enjoy over the years. And please like us on Facebook as well. For everyone at Louisiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Andre Morrow. Thanks for watching. Until next time, that's the state we're in.
Check us out on Facebook and Twitter, and visit lpb.org, where you can view more stories and leave us a comment. This program is available on DVD. Support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum. Located in Jennings City Hall, the museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is a historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. Additional support provided by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and viewers like you.